Today we're going to finish up our discussion about secondary legal resources. Just a reminder, secondary legal resources are sources that we use to teach ourselves about primary law, but they're not law themselves. Primary law is essentially things like statutes, case law, and regulations. So the video part of this presentation, what you're watching right now, is going to focus on finding and using journal articles in your legal research. The in-class portion of the presentation will focus on using things like legal news, blogs, alerts, and RSS feeds to conduct legal research. So be prepared for a journal article research exercise the first thing when we get to class. Then I'll do a presentation on the other resources that I just talked about, and then hopefully we'll have time for a second research exercise on legal news and blogs later on in the class. And at the end of this class, we'll have wrapped up our discussion on secondary resources, and we'll move on to primary law research next class. Alright, so today I'm going to use a real Supreme Court case. Not that you need to understand the substantive issues so much, but just so that we have a real case to talk about, an issue to use to discuss how you formulate queries and how you research using these particular secondary sources. So I just think it makes more interesting to talk about a particular case. Alright, so here's our case. As I mentioned, it's scheduled to be heard this term by the Supreme Court. It involves a man named Hector Martinez Maldonado. He served in the Puerto Rican State Senate from 2005 until 2011. And in 2011, he was convicted of accepting a bribe in exchange for agreeing to pass certain legislation. Specifically, he accepted an all-expense-paid trip to Las Vegas to watch a boxing match involving Puerto Rican fighter Felix Tito Trinidad. In 2013, the First Circuit Court of Appeals overturned Maldonado's conviction based on flawed instructions to the jury. So at that point, the prosecutor sought a new trial, but Maldonado argued that the new trial should be barred by double jeopardy. As you know, double jeopardy means you can't be prosecuted a second time after being acquitted the first time. So Maldonado is able to argue double jeopardy because his original jury trial resulted in a mixed verdict, meaning that he was acquitted on some charges while being convicted on other charges. So the prosecutor's arguing that when the First Circuit vacated his conviction, it also canceled out the preclusive effect of the acquittals under the double jeopardy clause of the Constitution. So the prosecutor's saying the counts are so interrelated that the whole case just needs to be sort of thrown out, both the convictions and the acquittals. Of course, Maldonado saying no, the acquittals must stand, and he can't be tried again on those counts for something for which a jury verdict has already granted him an acquittal. So I think it's an interesting case. I think the Supreme Court's going to expand or at least refine the definition of double jeopardy one way or the other, so I'll be interested to see what they do. All right, this is the first journal tool that we're going to talk about. OneSearch is what's considered to be an aggregated search tool, and all that means is that OneSearch will search through many different sources all at one time, unlike, say, Lexis or Westlaw, where all you're searching is Lexis or Westlaw. So how does OneSearch work? As I mentioned, it's searching many different sources at the same time. So basically everything we have here at the Brooklyn Law Library, OneSearch is going to search through for us. We put in a search term and it's going to search books, magazines, news, academic journals, and as you can imagine, given that it's searching so many different sources, it's going to find hundreds of thousands sometimes of results. So what you can do is you can use the filters that are built into OneSearch to limit your results later to exactly what you're looking for. And then it makes sense to set up an account so that you can save your results, you can organize them into folders, and you can have a history so you can go back and look at them later. So let's take a look at it. So here's the issue. Bravo Fernandez is actually the man that offered the bribe to Maldonado, so this is the Maldonado case. And basically the issue that the Supreme Court will be considering is whether a vacated unconstitutional conviction can cancel out the preclusive effect of an acquittal under the collateral estoppel prong of the double jeopardy clause. So here's how I do a OneSearch search. Right from the library homepage, given the issue that I just read, I enter the word acquittal and the phrases double jeopardy and collateral estoppel. And I constructed the search this way so that I'm going to return sources that only contain acquittal and those two phrases, double jeopardy and collateral estoppel. I want to get relevant results, but not too many. So once I do that, here's my results. And as you can see, I'm getting almost 500 results. So I have a lot of results here. And this is what I would do then. I use the filters on the left to either look at academic journals or books, news, if that's what I'm interested in. And then, as I mentioned, it makes sense to set up a OneSearch account. So you can save these results and you can look at them later. You don't have to recreate the wheel every time you come to one search. And there's the folder. So you can organize your research however you want. You can set up a double jeopardy folder and a landlord-tenant folder, whatever it is that you're working on, and come back and look at it again. All you need is your Brooklaw email to set up a OneSearch account. All right, let's just take a second to actually look at these results. These seem really pretty good. They're exactly the issue that we were looking at. There's mixed jury verdicts. They're talking about collateral estoppel. They're talking about double jeopardy. So this seems to have worked. And there's a number of different things that I can take a look at and get started on my research. Okay, so that's one search. Now let's talk about some other ways that we search for legal periodicals. What is a legal periodical? Some of you are already very familiar with law reviews because you're actually on the staff of one of the 4 BLS law review journals. The other type of legal periodical is a professional law journal. While law reviews are focused mostly on the needs of legal scholars, professional law journals focus mostly on the needs of practicing lawyers. And there's our 4 journals that we have here at BLS, and as I mentioned, many of you are probably on the staff of these journals. So what's the characteristics of law review articles? And in knowing this, you'll also understand why they might be useful to you in doing legal research. The articles usually begin with a really good summary of the relevant doctrine and the literature in a particular area of law. These are invaluable when you're trying to familiarize yourself with a new area of law. I use them all the time when I was a practicing lawyer, particularly when I was a solo practitioner and I was always looking for a free way to learn a new area of the law. I was able to go pull law review articles and read, like, say, the first 10 or 15 pages and learn an area of the law. So I'd read like 3 or 4 articles. And then, as you know, articles in law journals also contain many footnotes. Site checkers know this for sure. And so not only could I get a very high quality introduction, I could also mine those articles, then look at the footnotes and find out what were the seminal cases, and then I could go read the cases, what were the other law journal articles that were useful in this area of the law, and what statutes were there. I mean, I still had to go do my own primary law research, but these articles pointed me in the right direction. So saved me a lot of time. And like I said, I found them to be a very high quality, very well written, was an invaluable tool for me. So you may very well use them in practice as well. Professional law journals, I also use these all the time. What are the characteristics of a professional law journal? The articles are usually shorter and they focus on practical issues. For example, an article might focus on how to draft a particular corporate document, or they might tell you how a new statute is likely to affect the defense of a particular cause of action. They generally also provide fewer citations than law reviews, and they also usually emphasize current developments of interest to practicing lawyers. That's who they're directed for. They still might be something that you might look at now as a law student in doing legal research. It just depends on the research that you're looking at. All right, so how do you find legal periodical articles? How do you get to a journal article? It's very easy if you have the citation. If you have the citation, it gives you the title of the article and then the volume, the journal name that the article is appearing in, and the page number. So if you have all of that, you can just enter the name of the journal, not the name of the article, but the name of the journal in SARA, our library catalog, and it'll tell you right away if we have that journal available in print or electronically. You can also use the library's Find a Source tool, which is probably the better place to go if you have a journal title. All right, so let's take a look at all of this. Here we are on the library homepage, and the first thing I'm going to do is select the SARA catalog because I want to search SARA this time for library resources rather than doing one search. Once I'm in the SARA catalog, I just put in the name of the journal that I'm interested in. So I'm looking at collateral estoppel, I'm looking at double jeopardy, so I figured American Criminal Law Review would be a good journal to take a look at and see what relevant articles they have. So this is a catalog record. It's showing me, yes, the library does have this journal, and it's telling me that it's available electronically through Hein Online. And if I click on this link, it'll take me right to Hein Online. I don't have to do any further searching. So that's a convenient thing when you're trying to get to a particular journal quickly. Back to the library homepage, this time I'm going to use that Find a Source tool, and there it is right there. And then once in there, I do the same thing that I did on SARA. Put in the name of the journal, American Criminal Law Review. And here, the Find a Source tool is good and maybe better than SARA for this purpose because it's telling me all the different databases that I can get this journal in, and then it's also telling me the dates of coverage. So if I had an article from 1975, for example, you can see that I wouldn't be able to find it in most of the databases here, but in Hein I could. Hein has the journal from 1971, which is probably its first issue on, whereas Westlaw, for instance, only has it from 1993. So same thing, just click on that link and it'll take you right to the journal in the database. So 2 good ways to get into a journal title, and then you can search for your articles. So if you don't have the name of a particular journal in mind, which is probably most of the time, and you just want to find relevant articles to the research you're doing, you can run keyword searches. You can use Westlaw, Lexis, Google Scholar, or Journal Index, which I'll spend a lot more time talking about in a minute. Keep Hein in mind when you need articles in PDF format. If you're a site checker, Hein has, for most American law reviews, it has the full run of the journal back from its first issue. So here's how I would do it on Westlaw if I was looking for an article. First thing I want to do, I don't want to search the entire West database. I'm just going to look for law review articles. So I'm going to start narrowing down before I ever even enter in my search terms. So from the landing page, I put in secondary sources, click on that, then law reviews and journals. Now I go ahead and put my keyword terms, and I'm just going to search for the phrase double jeopardy and collateral estoppel. So I'm telling West, I want you to find me law review and journal articles that use both of these phrases. And so now it's giving me a series of articles, and now I can start taking a look at the articles and figuring out which ones are going to be useful to me in my research. So I'm just going to click on the first one and show you some of the things that you can do as far as when you find an article on West to find more additional relevant information. So once I'm in the article, I see it's great. It's exactly on point what I want, but it's a little old. It's from 1996, so I might be worried that other things have happened in the 20 years since then. So here's a really good tool on West that you use when you are updating cases and when you're updating statutes, but you can also use them when you're looking at journal articles. So what citing references is going to tell me is every case and every law review article and any other source that's ever cited to this due process of criminal collateral estoppel article. So obviously if they've cited to this article, they're newer than this article, so it's a good way to kind of update my research. And then this table of authorities is also a useful tool when you're doing journal research in West. And this will basically just give me a list of cases that are cited in this particular Harvard Law Review Journal article. So I can look at the relevant cases. And as value added, West actually key cites those cases for me. So if they've been overturned since they were cited in this 1996 article, West is going to indicate that for me. So that's good. The process is very similar in Lexis, so I'll just go through it quickly. From the landing page of Lexis, you pick secondary materials, law reviews and journals. I enter in the same keyword search. And now you can see I'm getting a list of articles again. When I click into an article, now if I want to update my research, this is a 2005 article, I tell Lexis I want to shepherdize. Once I'm in Shepherds, then it's broken down into citing decisions, so I can see if there are any cases that cited to this law review article, which happens sometimes. Court decisions do cite to law review articles. And then other citing sources, which would be law reviews and other secondary materials that might be citing to this particular law review article. So again, a good way to update this area of the law and see if there's any journals that have written about this issue preclusion, more recent than 2005. And then like on Westlaw, I can get a table of authorities for myself with all the cases that were cited in this particular collateral estoppel article in St. Mary's Law Journal. The next place I might go if I were looking for journal articles is Google Scholar. So when I'm in Google Scholar, the first thing I do is choose articles. So I'm not looking for case law, which we'll be doing later in the semester. And then I go ahead and do my keyword search. And I'm pulling up a bunch of relevant looking articles. I've got 3,000 articles, and I can click right on the link. And if I'm in the library or I've implemented the proxy, it's going to take me right to the database. So here, even from Google, this particular article is on Hein. It's going to take me right to the article on Hein. Be aware that sometimes these links don't work and you're asked to pay for an article. You really should never pay for an article while you're here at BLS. The library can find it online, or we can borrow it for you from another library. So just come to the reference desk and we'll get it for you. So I'm going to click on this article, and as you see, it's opening up right in Hein for me. So I just wanted to take a minute and show you some of the things that you can do on Hein. You can use this drop-down box to jump from page to page in an article. That's great if you're doing a site check. You can click here to see the article in PDF. Again, this is ideal if you're site checking because according to the Blue Book, PDF is equivalent to print. And then finally, I can use this magnifying glass icon to search for keywords. So if I'm looking for a particular phrase or a point that the author made, I can do a keyword search in this article alone. So if I was looking for collateral estoppel, for example, this is where I could go to get to that particular point in the article. Okay, so that's pretty much it for finding articles. Now we're just going to talk a few minutes about legal periodical indexes, something that you're probably not as familiar with. And in short, legal periodical indexes are nothing more than a tool that legal scholars use to find journal articles. So they're not really a source themselves, but they're a way to find journal articles. So what are they exactly? Basically, a database that includes biographical information about an article. So they include not the full text of the article itself, but the author, the article title, the journal title. And because they're only including this limited information in their content, they can include more articles than a full text database like Westlaw or Lexis or Hunt Online. So why is that good? The reason why is because if you only have this little bit of information, you can just search and get fewer results but more highly relevant results. And the way this works is, in addition to the biographical information, each article is going to be assigned a controlled vocabulary subject heading. And the way to think about that, rather than going through the painful process of calling something a controlled vocabulary subject heading, it's a hashtag. So if I'm looking for something on Twitter or Vine or any of these social networking sites, there's a way that people talk about a particular issue. So say I want to find out what's going on with Donald Trump these days, I could put in hashtag the Donald, and I'm sure I'd pull up all kinds of interesting tweets about that. So in this scenario, Trump is the hashtag or the controlled vocabulary subject heading for all things relating to the Donald. So in a periodical index, it's the same thing. I find one good article and then I use the hashtags or the controlled vocabulary subject headings assigned to that article to find additional relevant good articles. Examples like we've been talking about today could be double jeopardy, collateral estoppel, acquittal, or some combination of those tags. So find one good article on the double jeopardy, collateral estoppel issue that the Supreme Court's going to be considering this term, and then I click on that control vocabulary subject heading, and it's going to give me all of the other articles that have been assigned to that particular tag. So in summary, periodical indexes save you time by allowing you to easily find additional relevant articles after you've found an initial article that's on point. So why would you do that rather than Westlaw and Lexis? And maybe you would do both. They're kind of a different process for searching. Westlaw and Lexis search the full text of the article. It might be something that was spoken about in passing on page 95 of a 105-page article. The indexes are only searching the subject headings or the hashtags, so they're going to return more highly relevant articles. You're always going to get fewer, but they're hopefully going to be more highly relevant. Indexes are also available in print, but much more difficult. Some things I like in print better, some things I like electronic. This is definitely one thing that I would use electronic. And the big advantage that electronic indexes have, even though they don't provide the full text of the article in your search, they have links to them, to some of them. Not every journal article that's indexed you can necessarily get the full text, but some of them you can. So that's great. If you see an article you like, looks like it's going to be interesting because of the subject headings, you might be able to click on it and be sent right out to the article. There's two main legal periodical indexes. Legaltrack, which is from Gale, and LegalSource from EBSCO. So from the library homepage, the easiest way to do this is to go to our databases by subject, because it has all our databases and then a little description of them. We have them A to Z, and then we also have them by subject area. So here you'll see we have a whole subject area of just periodical and periodical index databases. So anytime you're looking for articles on anything, this is a good place to go. And it shows you all of these various different databases that we have, and we'll be talking about some of them as we go along here. This one's the current index to legal periodicals, not LegalSource or Legaltrack, and this is just like it sounds. It's the index that only includes articles that are less than 6 months old. Scroll down a bit and you can get to LegalSource, which we just talked about, and Legaltrack. So Legaltrack provides indexing for 1,500 journals and some specialty publications as well. In addition to the indexing, Legaltrack also provides links to more than 250 journals in full text. So let's take a look at it and see how Legaltrack works. All right, so if I click on the Legaltrack link in that list of databases that I showed you from our library homepage, this is the landing page. Now I'm going to do an advanced search, so I just click on that from the homepage. and it brings up this template that I can kind of fill in. I want to do a subject search because I want to look for those hashtags because I want to get those few articles that are highly relevant. So I'm putting in double jeopardy as a subject and acquittals as a subject and telling Legaltrack to get me articles that both of those are considered to be an important topic discussed in the article. And here's my results. So you can see on like a Google search or like a Westlaw Lexis where you get thousands of results, I'm only getting 40 results. But again, they're all pretty good. They're highly relevant to what I'm looking for. And then if I want to break it down even further, I can use these filters on the right. I can tell Legaltrack I only want articles that we have available in full text. I only want peer-reviewed articles. I can get a custom date range if I want to look at more recent articles. So if that's important to you, you can use these filters on the right. And then don't forget about these enhanced services that Legaltrack provide. This one I particularly like. It's called Topic Finder. So let's just see what that looks like. And what this is Legaltrack is kind of doing a computer algorithm to decide what are some of the topics that are common to all of the articles that appeared in this search. And then I can narrow down to my particular topic that I'm looking for here, double jeopardy. And then you can look over on the right and Legaltrack is telling me these 6 articles are really what you want to be taking a look at. Kind of a little different than Lexis and Westlaw. Good to know different ways to get your research results. Moving on to Legal Source, it's a competitive project to Legaltrack. It provides access to 1,200 full-text journals. It includes within the database the index to legal periodicals retrospective. If you're doing historical research or you're looking for older articles, Legal Source is a good place to go because of this particular aspect. So here's the landing page for EBSCO Legal Source. Again, I can get there from that list of subject databases that I showed you before. And then I can choose my databases here. It's giving me some different things. So I can choose to just search Legal Source if I want to, or I could include also the index of legal periodicals, retrospective, or any of these other databases that you see here. So I just start typing in double jeopardy and it's suggesting me a subject, double jeopardy Supreme Court. And since that's what we were doing, we're looking at the Supreme Court case, I went ahead and clicked on that. And I thought these were some pretty interesting results. So that's why an index is value added, because it's giving you some suggestions that you might not otherwise think about. So all these articles are talking about the Supreme Court and the evolution of the doctrine of double jeopardy. So interesting stuff. In this legal source, I can click on here and get a PDF copy of an article. So good, again, if I'm site checking, it's the same as print. Or I can use this connect to full text, which is a link resolver. Once again, it's going to tell me where at BLS I can find this particular journal. Here it's the Two-Lane Law Review. So it's going to tell me where in BLS can I get to the Two-Lane Law Review, and then I can take a look at the article. All right, so moving on from legal articles, sometimes when you're doing a note or even as a practicing lawyer, it's not just legal articles that you need to read. You also might need to read, I was a health lawyer, so I had to read a lot of medicine and reimbursement type articles. So we also have some databases here for those kind of resources. These indexes are pretty much the same thing as the legal indexes, but they're more focused on multidisciplinary kind of resources. So let's spend a minute talking about finding non-legal journal articles. Some of the good databases we have here, if you're looking for that, are Academic Search Premier, which is a multidisciplinary database. It's got more than almost 14,000 index journals, and again has links to some of these journals in full text. There's also ProQuest, which is a database of 30 different databases, and you can search one or all of them, almost 20,000 journals in there. JSTOR is a good resource to know about. It has both legal and non-legal journal articles, mostly of a scholarly nature. SSRN is an interesting database. It's open source. People just upload either published articles or sometimes even working papers. So they're looking for comments from other scholars. So it's a good way to find something that's brand new. And finally, you can always go to the journal's website to see if you can download articles directly. I always had good luck with this when I was a solo practitioner. Most law reviews do make at least some of their issues freely available on the internet. Of course, this is only useful if you have a particular article already in mind, but that's why it's good to know how to use Google Scholar to find the articles in the first place. And that's what I did, is I would go to Google Scholar, do a keyword search, find an article, and then go to the journal's website and see if I could get my hands on the article and then teach myself yet another new area of the law. Okay, so here we are going back to the library homepage and selecting databases by subject. And now we're going to look at the non-legal journal databases. So there's Academic Search Premier. Go scroll down a bit. There's JSTOR. There's ProQuest. There's SSRN. And here's Medline, which is the big medicine database, so actually run by the National Library of Medicine. If you were looking for articles written by physicians, nurses, dentists, vets, etc., you could find medical articles, which I used all the time as a health lawyer. And then the last one I'll mention is the Web of Science, which used to be known as the Arts and Humanities Citation Index, and that's used mostly by scholars. You could get access to some full text articles, but its real reason for being is scholars can see how they're being cited, who they're being cited to, and what they're really interested, who's being cited the most over time. So it's a kind of a way to evaluate who is the premier writer in a particular field. All right, so that's about it. That's the end of our discussion of finding journal articles, both legal and non-legal. As I mentioned, right away in class, we'll be doing a legal research exercise, and you're going to use the resources that I presented in this video lecture to go ahead and do some research and see if you can answer the questions in the exercise and formulate some advice for your client. As usual, before you go, don't forget to take the week 3 quiz and submit your results, and I look forward to seeing you in class.